after a lot of self-reflection, after my injury, I said, how was I able to recover so well? And for me, when I was connecting the dots, it was because I had chosen to do gritty things throughout my entire life that had built up that resilience in me. I studied under Angela Duckworth, who wrote an entire book on grit. And she defines grit as it's passion and perseverance for long-term growth. And she found that as the number one predictor for long-term success. And I found that true in my own life. And that's why one of the goals that I want to continue to try to do is spread that message of how powerful it is to not only be aware of the power of grit, but also to make it part of your daily, your weekly, your yearly life, because it's not something that you learn in school.
No.
But it's something that everybody's going to have to deal with.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you are hearing this, you have once again tuned in the Consequence of Habit podcast. This is your host, JT. Before we get this episode started, I want to tell you that we have a new Mastering Habits course kicking off on March 23rd. If you started this New Year's resolution on January 1st and you've failed, that isn't something you've done yourself. It's your systems failed you. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to help you make these small changes in your life, have a habit audit, understand what it is you do on a daily basis, and then start tweaking it, man. Just start pulling the levers. You can do that within a community. You're going to have 3 live meetings with Chris Norris and myself. You'll be going through this with another group of people that are trying to do the same thing. Not trying, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to make these changes. That we are doing an early bird pricing up until February 20th. And that's going to be $169. After that, it goes to $249. So big difference. If you want to sign up for that, there's a link on our social media. There's also, you can go to consequenceofhabit.org under events and you can register right there. This is something that this course has morphed, and I'm super proud of where we are with it. I think it's fantastic. So you want to start making some changes in your life, make sure you check that out. All right, that brings us to this week's guest, or this month's guest. In the intro, you just heard from former Marine infantry officer Patrick Nugent talk about something that most of us never really do. That is changing the story we tell ourselves about what happened to us and then living like that new story is true. That's not a theory for him. It's how we moved from a catastrophic training accident to Harvard, Wharton, the Invictus Games, Boston Consulting Group, and now chasing a Paralympic dream and launching a foundation built on grit and growth. What drew me to Patrick isn't just his resume. It's how it intentionally is about the small things, the keystone habits, the goal tracking, the daily structure, the way he uses stoic philosophy and cognitive reappraisal in real time. This conversation isn't about pretending something wasn't hard. It's about, all right, now what do we do next? And how do those decisions compound? Have you ever wondered why 2 people can go through the same kind of adversity and end up in a completely different place? Wow, I think this episode is for you. So without further ado, please welcome to the podcast, Patrick Nugent. First off, Patrick, I appreciate you took the train here, which says a lot. I appreciate that very much. And actually, before we even get started, I want to say huge thanks to the whole crew at Fuel Hunt for allowing us once again to be here at headquarters. This is probably my 4th time recording here. These guys have always been just so gracious. So huge thanks to those guys, Joey and the team. But you took the train down, Patrick. I'm trying to think, how did we get connected? Was it through?
It was through Nick Lavery.
Nick Lavery.
Yeah.
All right. So most people listening to this will know who Nick Lavery is. How did you become associated with Nick? Were you guys at like Walter Reed at the same time?
No, I actually just reached out to Nick for some advice.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's how the whole thing came about?
That's how it came about, yeah.
Dude, that guy's so nice.
So nice.
I can't believe, honestly, on how much he, we're not just here to hype Nick Lavery, I promise, but how much he does interact with everyone that reaches out. It's crazy to me. But, all right, so let's get into your story a little bit. First off, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. So unfortunately, that makes me a big Cleveland Browns fan. So I knew adversity from a very, very young age.
That's all we got to say. But you now live in Manhattan?
I now live in New York City, yeah.
Okay. Right.
Well, technically Brooklyn, just moved to Brooklyn about a month ago. But,
oh, really?
Yeah.
You were in Manhattan?
I was in Manhattan. I was in the Chelsea area.
Oh, That's nice. It's a
Yeah,
beautiful area.
it was nice.
You're an athlete. You're an entrepreneur. You are a former Marine lieutenant, captain.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of get into that story. So that's right. Nick's people, Sydney reached out
Yeah.
and made the intro and said, "Hey man, this guy Patrick's got a story that I think falls right in line with our mission." We'll get into habits, man. Like, yeah, I heard you talk about it on another podcast. There's something about challenge that's always kind of appealed to you. Maybe you talk about your childhood and you kind of your thoughts on habits and why you think you kind of leaned into doing things that were difficult.
Sure. Yeah. So growing up in Cleveland, Cleveland's very blue collar city. Everybody loves sports. So naturally I was drawn to sports growing up, and sports is just a constant challenge. And in grade school, I played any sport you can think of: football, basketball, baseball, golf, hockey. And then when it came time to come to high school, I continued that trend, but you can't play every sport in high school. So I chose football, hockey, and lacrosse. And I went to a school called St. Ignatius, and it's a big school in Cleveland, and they're a powerhouse in football. Not anymore, unfortunately, but at least when I was there. And the challenge and the expectation was, if you were on the team every year, your goal is to win a state championship. So to me, the challenge of, as a freshman being like, one day I'm going to be a state champion, like that was very powerful. And that kept me coming back. And senior year, we did end up winning the state championship.
Nice.
And from there, I knew I wanted to go to the military, again, for the challenge aspect. But also, I had a grandfather served as a naval aviator, World War II. My dad served as a Marine just after Vietnam. And I saw a statistic recently that said roughly 80% of service members have had some form of family member serve, which I just found crazy.
Was your family also into sports? Was that something that was? I guess my question is: was it optional, or was it something like, hey, you're gonna do these sports?
No, it was optional. Something I was drawn to. My grandfather was a serious athlete. He played basketball at Villanova, led them to the first Final Four in the history of Final Fours. So this was back in the 30s. They unfortunately lost to Ohio State. And then he ended up playing for a little bit for the 76ers. World War II happened, joined the Navy.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. All right. So sports and service, military, it was in your family. So you graduate high school what year?
2009.
Okay. So what you said you always wanted to be in the military. Was that an instant? Obviously not. You're a captain, so I'm assuming there was college in between there.
Yes. So once I made the decision that I want to go military, my dad said, okay, but you're going to have to go to college first. He pretty much made that a non-negotiable for me. And so I said, okay, well, what other colleges are there besides Naval Academy, West Point? Because at the time, I didn't know what branch of service I wanted to be in.
Okay, so I didn't want to like corner yourself into one.
Yeah, I didn't want to go to Air Force Academy and then be forced to go into the Air Force.
Sure.
So I asked him if there's any other sort of military schools. And then he mentioned the Citadel, which is the military college of South Carolina. And I had no idea that there were these senior military academies in the U.S. There's
a couple, right? Like, what are some of
there's
the other
like
ones?
5 or 6. So there's the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina.
Yep.
There's Virginia Military Institute. There's Texas
in Lexington. It doesn't matter.
I don't know. Yeah. There's Texas A&M. They have a Corps Cadets.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's Norwich, and then Virginia Tech.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are the senior military academies. Essentially, you can go to one of those schools, see what branch of service that you want to be in, join their ROTC program, and then you can commission as an officer. And in very rare cases, you could also go the enlisted route. So I had some friends that went the enlisted route from.
Is that just because especially the type of job they wanted to do?
A lot of them wanted to be in special operations.
Yeah.
So your odds increase if you go the enlisted route.
Yep. I know it's a really small percentage within the officers. So, all right. So you go in, you get your bachelor's, and the entire time, what was the process of like, hey, I know I want to go in the military, but you end up eventually in the Marines. What is that? What does that look like? And what are some of the reasons behind it?
So for me, it's between the Marines and Army, mainly for the mission set. I knew I wanted to go infantry, so that narrowed down my choice. And then I just naturally gravitated towards my classmates that were pursuing the Marine path. And I like the challenge, again, challenge, right? Challenge that the Marine Corps posed. So all the recruiters, I was a freshman at the Citadel, they kind of gave their spiel, gave their pitch. A lot of them talked about the different benefits of what you can expect if you join the Air Force, the Navy, the Army. And then I remember this Marine captain gets up there and he says, if you want to be a Marine, show up tomorrow, 0500, we're running the endurance course. So again, like the challenge of not everybody has what it takes to be a Marine.
Yeah. And you played sports in college too, I'm assuming?
I did. So I played football my freshman year, but then came to the realization after my freshman year that the Cleveland Browns weren't going to draft me. So
Right.
I wanted to pursue the military aspect more on a full-time basis because what I didn't realize was at a place like the Citadel and any college, if you play a sport, it's pretty much like a full-time job.
Yeah.
So I was getting out of a lot of the day-to-day military and cadet activities. And I had specifically chosen the Citadel
For that aspect. Yeah.
And then football was just taking priority. And I had to make the decision at the end of my freshman year. I said, I gave it a year. It's not something that I want to do professionally.
Yeah.
So I need to politely decline and pursue a Marine Corps scholarship.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And what is a Marine? When you say a Marine Corps scholarship, they're paying for.
Yes, it's like it's called an NROTC scholarship.
Okay.
So they have 4-year scholarships, 3.5-year scholarships, 3-year scholarships.
Yeah, that's why I didn't know that. All right. So how long? What's the process? You get out of the Citadel. Is it instantaneous? All right, you're going. I mean, right into, is it OTC that you still go to, or is that kind of done through?
So I did Officer Kennedy School my junior year. So essentially that's 6 months, Quantico, Virginia, where they're assessing your ability to lead Marines.
Yep.
Past that, then I graduated Citadel 2013. What makes the Marine Corps different than every other branch, every newly commissioned officer has to go to Quantico, Virginia, and you go there for 6 months in what's called the basic school. So that's where you get the expression, every Marine's a rifleman. So every Marine officer is trained how to be a basic rifle platoon commander.
Yeah.
And then that's also where you're competing for your MOS or your specialty. Naive, I show up to the basic school and there's a list of 30 to 40 different specialties. I had thought there was only one. I thought there was only infantry, right? Because that's something that if you join the Marine Corps, I thought that's what everybody wanted to do. So I remember the instructor said, all right, raise your hand if you want to go infantry. So this classroom of 300 people, 15 raised their hand.
No shit.
Yeah, so I was pretty shocked at that.
Were you looking around like maybe I should lower my hand at this point? What does everyone else know that I don't, or what? I mean, what was it about infantry that it really appealed to you in the first place?
A few things. I'll try to stay away from the challenge as the easy answer.
Okay.
Challenge was definitely an aspect of it, but it was also what I envision my experience in the military. It was to be on the ground conducting the missions and operations that our country has us do. And also to lead at the highest level. To me, there's no other MOS where you can do that besides the infantry. Granted, there's different special operations paths and stuff like that. But for me,
yeah, I would think even as a leadership aspect, if you look at that as a challenge, and to take nothing away from those other groups.
Yeah.
But there's specific types of people that go into those groups, right? And I don't know. I could be oversimplifying this, but I think that if someone were to say, hey, I need you to lead, here's a group of infantry, here's a group of special operations. I just see that being a huge challenge on the infantry side. Like you need real leaders to be able to because you're getting everybody, right? Like
well, not only that, but also a lot of people were afraid mainly because one of the most challenging and difficult schools that the Marine Corps offers, it's called Infantry Officer Course. So what makes it so demanding is if you sign up for BUDS, you pretty much know what to expect. If
Yeah.
you sign up for other training, you can Google, you can read articles. Infantry officer course has this mystique to where there's no articles. I've Googled everything you can.
Yeah.
There's
And
there,
that's not an accident,
yeah,
right? Like,
there's no books about it. The only thing you know is that it's the most difficult course in the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps by itself is just generally hard. So I think that's another reason why a lot of people didn't raise their hand. It's because you knew after this 6 months at TBS, you're going to be in a 3-month course where you had no idea what to expect. You didn't get the curriculum ahead of time.
Yeah. All right. So you go in the Marines. Your MOS is going to be infantry officer.
Yep.
Um, how long were you doing that before inevitably we're going to get into the training accident, but
Sure.
how long were you doing that before that accident happened?
So I got assigned 1st Battalion, 5th Marines, which is out in Camp Pendleton, California. So one of the best duty stations that a Marine can be assigned. And I showed up. I was a platoon commander right away. I didn't realize this at the time. That's not a guarantee that you get to be a platoon commander.
Oh, really?
Like a rifle platoon commander. You can be a weapons platoon commander. You can be a different sort of specialty. But I was fortunate. I got the real experience that was something that everybody wanted to do. So I showed up, platoon commander. My battalion commander says, okay, 6 months, we're going to be on our first deployment. We're going to go to Southeast Asia as a part of the 31st MU. So for the Marines, we are always forward deployed doing something.
Yeah.
And they're called MUs, so Marine Expeditionary Units. And essentially, they're just crisis response forces for different areas of the world. And our claim is within 24 hours, the Marines can be boots on the ground conducting whatever mission or operation. It could be humanitarian aid, right? Like a tsunami hits the Philippines, they need food and water. It could be an embassy reinforcement, since every embassy in the world is guarded by U.S. Marines. And it could be a raid. So during the training and preparation, training my Marines to be ready for all those different mission sets.
So that leads up, you're in... I just don't want to misrepresent it.
Sure.
Maybe just kind of run through what happened within the training accident and then we'll kind of go from there on how it reshaped your future.
So I have a normal deployment for the 31st MU. We're 6 months, Southeast Asia, going from Japan, South Korea, Philippines, Thailand, doing a lot of bilateral training exercises with our allies in the region. Fortunately for us, no crisis happened, so everybody came home. And then I was promoted to first lieutenant and then became the company executive officer. So now second in command of 170 Marines. This time we had 13 months before our next deployment, and we're going to be going to North Africa and the Middle East as a part of the 15th MU. And it was 5 days into that deployment where the injury happened. So the ships, on a MU, you take 3 big Navy ships, and we were going to be leaving from San Diego. My company commander wanted to fly to Hawaii because the ships were going to go to Hawaii, refuel, get supplies. He's like, instead of sitting on ship for, a week, let's just fly to Hawaii, get 7 days of training in, have the ships come pick us up, and then we'll be on our way.
Yeah.
So as the executive officer, it's my job to make that happen. So the company commander says he wants to do something. The executive officer, you plan, you coordinate, you execute. So we were doing live fire training, so using real bullets, and we were doing fire team attacks. So 4 Marines, we were doing squad attacks. So 13, 14 Marines. And then eventually we ended up doing platoon reinforced attacks. So a Marine platoon of around 40 Marines plus the supporting elements like machine gunners, mortarmen, stuff like that. And it was on the last day of training. We had done day missions. So typically the way we do it in the Marine Corps is you do what's called day runs. So you do the mission in the day, and then you do the exact same mission at night because you never know when you're on the deployment if you're going to be asked to do a night mission or a day mission.
Yeah, and doing that stuff with MVGs is way different. There is a huge difference, obviously. So
yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, so the day runs go smoothly. We're prepping for the night attacks now. Everybody's looking forward to it because it's the last big training evolution before we set sail for the deployment. And I'm off with the maneuver element, the support by fires firing on the objective, and all of a sudden I feel this like loud pop, and I didn't know what it was at the time. And after I heard that loud pop, both my legs go completely numb. I fall forward, my face hits the dirt, and I can't move my legs. So internally, I'm freaking out.
Oh, yeah.
And I immediately get on the radio. I say, "Hey, doc, I think I just been hit. I need you to come over." So all of a sudden, I hear this doc sprinting over and like screaming, "I'm on my way. I'm on my way." And then he assesses my wounds, confirms I got shot. But then the next words out of his mouth were words that I didn't want to hear. He said, "Hey, sir, you got shot, but I can't find an exit wound." And I knew, like, if you get shot, you want the bullet to go in and out.
Right.
For me, it had fractured my left pelvis. So right below my sappy plates are like bulletproof vest, ripped through my small and large intestines, and then lodged in my right hip. I didn't know all this until after. But as soon as he said he couldn't find an exit wound, my stomach was swelling up like a balloon. And that's when the pain just started to register. And everybody always asks what the pain was like. The only way that I can describe it is just imagine somebody has a blowtorch on your entire lower body, just unrelenting.
So, all right. So I'm in law enforcement, been in law enforcement.
Yeah.
And one of the things we you know, if you have to take somebody out and the headshot isn't a possibility, it's the pelvic girdle. Like you hit them in their because it won the pain.
Yeah.
And it completely takes somebody out of the fight because they literally can't see straight because of the pain. So when I heard you talk about this before, I was just wincing because I can only imagine. One, you have to be able to communicate, right?
Totally.
Like, and kind of somewhat keep it together. So, I'm sure, I think we forget about how bad things are on purpose because I'm sure that was so excruciating.
Yeah.
That to try and even relive that or think about it, or didn't even be able to talk about it would be hard. Right. So when you're laying there, your stomach is swelling up because one, those areas, there's so much blood.
Yeah. All the internal bleeding.
All the internal bleeding. I heard you talk about keeping your cool, being as stoic as possible, just because, when you do that, everyone around you tends to stay calmer, especially as a leader.
Yeah. Like one of the things that the Marine Corps does a great job, it's training their leaders. And I vividly remember this time where we were learning about a term called emotional contagion and how powerful it was, both positively and negatively. And you don't really truly understand the power of it until like you're experiencing the pain, the discomfort, all that sort of stuff. And as a leader, your Marines are looking to you to kind of like, what emotional state are you in? So I knew that in the back of my mind, despite all this pain that I was going through, that we still needed to get a helicopter landed to come pick me up. And we were chasing the golden hour.
What's your, all right, so this is what you're putting out to the rest of the Marines. What's your internal dialogue at this point? Are you just completely in shock? Are you having the realization that this might be it? I mean, what?
I was honestly in disbelief. I thought the internal dialogue, I thought I was dreaming. I was like, this doesn't happen. This doesn't have to happen to somebody like me. This is training. This isn't even combat. Like what? And it's as an officer too, because a lot of people that get injured for, just based on statistics is enlisted personnel. It's like very rarely the officer. And just the whole disbelief aspect. And then it was pretty inspiring though to watch my Marines just coordinating while I was having all this internal dialogue. Like they're like, "Hey, we got it, sir. We're on the phone with the helicopter. They'll be here in 15 minutes. Like, just find a way to stay awake."
Yeah. Yeah. Now, are you getting pain meds right then and there?
No. So there was no pain meds that they can give me at that point in time. Helicopter lands in about 20 minutes, which to me felt like eternity.
Okay.
And I get loaded on the helicopter away from my Marines. And I grabbed the medic on board. I said, Doc, you need to give me something for this pain. Like, it is unbearable.
Yeah. And not 800 milligrams of Motrin.
I didn't even know what would do the trick. And immediately I just felt this shot in my arm. I was like, whoa, what the heck was that? And he said, I just gave you some fentanyl, sir. Like, that should do the trick. He's like, it should kick in like almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
And 30 seconds go by, nothing. A minute goes by, nothing. I was like, Doc, this pain is still here. Like,
You gotta be
you need to give me
unconscious.
like another shot. He's like, that's all I'm authorized to give you.
Yeah.
So it was at that point where I knew my situation was continually getting worse. So and I could see myself going in and out of consciousness, but I kept repeating to myself 3 words. It was find a way, find a way, find a way. Because for me, those 3 words meant, hey, find a way to stay awake, because I had thought if I closed my eyes, if I went unconscious, then I wouldn't wake up. And this is not the way that I'm going out. And so I kept on repeating those 3 words, find a way, find a way. Next thing I know, I'm in a hospital, I'm loaded on a bed, and doctors are asking me questions, and then the lights go out.
And when you wake up, how long?
When I wake up, so this happened on the island of Kona, which is the big island in Hawaii. I had gotten life flighted the next day to Oahu, and then a few days later, I wake up to the prognosis that you're never going to have children. You're never going to go to the bathroom, number 1 or number 2, and then you're never going to be able to walk again. And I was 26 years old at the time.
Yeah. So let's talk about the injuries. This severed your sciatic nerve?
Yeah. So the key injury that's still affecting me to this day is a severed right sciatic nerve. So I didn't know what a sciatic nerve was. You have 2 sciatic nerves, one that goes on your left leg, one that goes on your right leg. It sprouts from your spinal column. It innervates your glutes, your hamstrings, your calf, your foot. So essentially like the backside of your leg. And for me, what that means to this day is from my knee down, I'm effectively paralyzed. So I can't move my foot up or down, side to side. I can't feel anything. And then I don't have any hamstring function and like limited glute function. So for me, it's my right quad is doing all the work.
Everything.
Yeah.
So I feel silly even bringing this up to somebody in your condition, but I've had a couple back surgeries, and one where my sciatic nerve was completely pinched, and I lost function of my left foot, and my calf shrunk down to like nothing. Yeah, so I kind of like foot drop, or more. I couldn't go up on my foot more than the drop. So we're the same. No, I'm joking. Yeah, but I remember thinking, what a strange feeling to look at a body part and not be able to make the mind muscle connection. And that's just that's been your reality since then.
Totally. Yeah. So this happened in 2017, and it's 2026 right now. So it's been like 9 years since then. And for me, it's just been, it's very normal now. Like, I don't even know what it's like to.
Do you still have, because I don't know if I go running or I ride or something, I still have like these crazy, like weird nerve stuff going up and down my leg. Do you still have nerve pain, or is it just numbness, or is it complete?
Yeah, so I have nerve pain that's, from when I've talked to doctors, it's similar to what amputees have, called phantom pain.
Yeah.
So like I'll have pain in my foot or in my calf, but I can't feel it and I can't move it. I can't do anything to mitigate it. I just have to wait for the pain to subside.
Yeah. Sounds.
So I could, if I really wanted to, continue to be on pain medication. But for me, as long as it wasn't affecting my sleep, then I didn't want to be on pain medication.
Yeah.
So I was on every single pain medication that you can think of for 2 years when I was recovering at the hospital. And then once I was done with major surgeries, major operations, I told my doctor, I said, because this was when a lot of service members were getting addicted to certain medication. And I said, I didn't want to be another statistic, and I want you to help me wean off of these pain medications. And
that's not an easy task.
No, not at all. Because as soon as I took them, like before I went to physical therapy or like whatever, I understood why people became addicted to them.
Yeah. Yeah, at that point, it's not like a moral failing. It's just it's science. Like your body,
Yeah.
you, you know, it's dopamine, and it
Hmm.
becomes addicted to these things. And so, even coming off of them for somebody that's just been prescribed them, that's not an easy task. And it sounds like you had a doctor that was good as far as starting that process. Because not only has this affected you physically, but that would have been really detrimental. What was that process like for you? How long did it take before you were completely off those?
From when I told him I wanted to get off pain medication, it was about 6 months.
Mhm.
But the scary thing is, I voiced that that was my goal. To whereas if I wanted to, still to this
You'd
day,
still be
I could
on.
be on pain
There's a
medication.
lot of people that are. And again,
Yeah.
that's not a knock on them. Um, it's just the system, right? I mean,
Yeah.
uh, so after going through your story, listening to a couple different podcasts, and then even talking to you on the phone the one time, I think
Hmm.
what I was really interested in, the reason I wanted to have you on today is this happens to you. This had been your goal for a long time at this period. It sounds like you want to be career military at this point.
Yeah. Like I didn't want to do anything else. I had a slot to go to assessment and selection with MARSOC after
Hmm.
this deployment. And because that's where I saw the evolution of warfare going. Gone were the days, in my opinion, of, sending 20,000, 30,000
Yeah,
US troops somewhere. It was going to shift more towards, I mean, we saw it this past weekend,
sure.
but special operations are going to be the ones conducting the missions and operations.
Yeah.
So I wanted to lean more into that. And the Marine Corps had recently stood up MARSOC. So that was what my path envisioned. And then I never factored in an injury taking me out of the fight, because when I was recovering at Walter Reed, they had come down with a new directive saying individuals who are on limited duty. So if you get injured in the military, you get 6 months. That's one period of limited duty to return to full duty, like a deployable status. And most individuals during the height of Iraq, Afghanistan, they were on 6, 7, 8 periods of limited duty. But the end result was they were always going to be on a medical board and get
Mm,
retired or separated. So they come down with this directive of, okay, we're only going to give people 2 periods of limited duty now. And if they can't get back to a deployable status, we have to put them on a medical board.
mm.
And I unfortunately fell into that. So I got put on a medical board and pretty much knew my time in the Marine Corps was going to come to an end.
I mean, obviously, there was that transition period that had to be extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Um, how long were you just mad at the world, right? You're like,
Yeah. So for me, I was really upset, mad, in disbelief after one of my major surgeries. So I'm a radical optimist by nature. I
mm,
always think everything's going to work out. And even despite the prognosis, right? Never going to walk, never gonna have children, never going to do, like go to the bathroom. I had this doctor at Walter Reed who he went to Harvard Medical School. Like everybody loved him. He said, "Hey, I want to perform this experimental surgery on you. I can't guarantee success, but your injury can't get any worse. And if successful, you could theoretically have a full recovery." So what he wanted to do, he wanted to open me up and he wanted to reconnect the nerve where it was severed.
didn't even know that's possible.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. And he wanted to connect it so then it would regenerate on its own. And I was like, when can we have the surgery?
You're like,
He's like,
too soon.
yeah. He's like, we can have it in a couple weeks. I was like, okay, awesome. And he's been practicing the surgery for the weeks leading up on a cadaver
You were the first
at the
person.
hospital. It had been done before successfully somewhere. So I was going to be the second person that it was done. And it's supposed to be this 12-hour surgery. I tell all my friends, tell all my family, tell my Marines, because
Mm,
my Marines are still in deployment. Like I got injured 5 days into it. And the day of the surgery comes, I get wheeled in, I get wheeled out, I become conscious again. And I look at the clock, it's only been like 2 hours.
like something's
And
not
I
right.
said, either he's the best
Right.
surgeon in the world or something happened. Next thing I know, he comes in, his head's down, and he said, I'm going to shoot it to you straight. The surgery was unsuccessful. And immediately when he said that, I said, unsuccessful? Like, surgeries are supposed to be successful. The optimist in me never factored in that this would be unsuccessful, despite the odds. And he said, yes, we opened you up and we saw that the nerve was severed too close to the spinal column. And the risk of going in, we would have potentially paralyzed you and made things worse. So he said it wasn't worth the risk. So we sewed you back up. And now we're going to have to figure out what your life's going to look like without a sciatic nerve. And then it was later that night when my Marines gave me a call to check in because they knew I was getting the surgery. And they were all excited. They're like, hey, how'd the surgery go? And I had to tell them that it was unsuccessful. And as soon as I said those words, I immediately started to bawl.
Yeah.
Just like cry my eyes out. And for me, I hadn't cried, I don't even know, maybe since I was like a kid. Because in the Marine Corps, you definitely don't cry.
Right.
And after self-reflection, I think it was the realization that my injury was going to be permanent in nature and it's going to be something that's going to alter the course of my life, positively or negatively. I didn't know it at the time. And I told myself, I said, all right, you're going to give yourself 24 hours, feel sorry for yourself, and then you're going to find a way to make the best out of this situation. And then that kind of led to knowing that I was going to be on the medical board, to refocusing on, okay, how can I get into grad school? How can I figure out what next to do in life?
24 hours. That was it.
Yeah. That's what I told myself. And luckily, because I knew I don't know the science behind it and what the proper term, but like everybody grieves in their own different way. For me, I just gave myself a timeline because I knew I needed to grieve and feel sorry for myself. And
of course,
the world was unfair.
You wouldn't be human if you didn't. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's got to be part of the process.
But then there were just so many people relying on me. Like my parents dropped everything, and with work, they alternated driving from Cleveland to Walter Reed. So that's a 6-hour drive.
Yeah.
One of them was by my side throughout my entire recovery. So just knowing the sacrifice that they were making for me in my recovery, and then everybody else, my friends, my Marines, to me, it didn't seem like I'd be doing them justice if I kind of like gave up and threw in the towel.
Sure.
And also, I still wanted to recover.
So without going too much in the recovery, there was one part. So I listened to the podcast driving here today. And there's one part that actually had me yell in my car because it just sounded so terrible. And that was, and I actually really appreciate you mentioned this podcast. There's the process of healing where someone can go to your Instagram, they can see you run a marathon or do a high rocks event. But there's these basic things of being human that you had to learn how to do.
Yeah.
And one of them was just going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And I was blown away when you told the doc, like, hey, I want to do this independently, and what that process looked like. If you could just kind of quickly run through that, because it was, dude, it had me shook.
Yeah. So when I say I couldn't go to the bathroom, that meant I had a catheter in. So that's where you go, number one. And then they had to do emergency surgery on my stomach. So they gave me an ostomy. And I didn't know what an ostomy was, but for those of you that don't know, it's when your intestine is literally hanging out of your stomach and you have a bag, and that's where you're going, number two. Again, I'm 26 at the time. I was single. I was like, this is a non-starter.
It's non-conducive to the single life. Yeah.
So I asked my doc, I said, how can I become more independent? And we had to wait for a certain recovery timeline before we could even entertain the idea. So I think to go number one, it was 4 or 5 months after, and I'm in the doctor's office. The doctor opens up the drawer. She said, if you want to be independent going number one, then you're going to have to self-cath until you can train your mind and body to go to the bathroom. And I said, self-cath? Like, what do you mean? She said, well, we're going to have to take out your current catheter. And every time you have to go to the bathroom, your mind-body connection at this point in time is broken. Meaning, like, I would feel the urge to go to the bathroom, but I physically couldn't tell my body to do it.
Yeah.
So anytime I felt that, she said, you're going to have to take this catheter, the self catheter. It's like this 14-inch straw.
Oh my God. This is the second time I've heard
Yeah,
this. And
you're going to have to stick it in where you go pee and push it all the way until it hits your bladder. So you have to push it in, I don't know, 6, 8 inches. And then as soon as it hits your bladder, the pee will just come out. And as soon as she told me, I said, Doc, there has to be another way. Like, that sounds...
It seems so unreasonable. Like,
it seems unreasonable. It seems painful. It seems like something that I do not want to do. And she said, this is the only way. So I said, okay, let me think about it. So again, I felt sorry for myself for a little bit.
Yeah.
The next day comes, I said, okay, I'm ready to try it out. And so what that entailed, every single time that I had to go to the bathroom, I had to get out a new straw. I had to go to like the corner of my bed and I had to go self-cath. And the pain...
I would never drink water ever.
Yeah.
I'd be the most dehydrated person.
Just think about, like, I go to the bathroom maybe 6, 7 times a day, like pee. So I had to do that, 5, 6, 7 times. The pain was bad every single time. But what allowed me to keep going forward was I knew that I wanted to be independent. So I had that goal to be independent. And I knew that pain was just part of the process. So it never got easier, but I just, the thing that helped was I kept on seeing progress.
Yeah. Okay.
So I had this little notebook, and each time I had to write down, okay, how much was I able to go, vice how much did I have to self-cath?
Okay.
So fast forward, it took me 6 weeks. So every single day
for 6 weeks,
I had to self-cath. And when people ask, like, well, what was the hardest part of recovery? That by far, because I had never heard of anybody else that had gone through it.
Yeah. I never heard that ever.
Yeah. Because the reversal for the ostomy, that was just, I was under anesthesia. They reopened me. They sew my intestines back together. And then I'm out the next day. But in order to go number 1, it was 6 weeks of self-cathing every single day.
Yeah, I tell you what, though. I mean, I see some of the physical events you do now. Nothing must compare to. Golly! All right, so we're gonna move on. So how long from the time that the accident happens to you get to a point, because you've just done a shit ton since the accident.
Yeah.
Both just personally and professionally. How long from the time of the training accident until you say, hey, I'm going to go to literally 2 business schools? You're going to...
Yeah, 1 business school and then 1 school for policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you go to the Harvard Kennedy School.
Yep.
And then Wharton was obviously the business school.
Yeah.
What was that time frame between, like, how long did that take?
So I was at Walter Reed for 2 years. That was
2 years.
Yeah. So both inpatient, outpatient. And once it became likely that I was going to have to leave the Marines, I was like, what am I going to do? And I had a bunch of friends that were leaving the Marines and other, the Army, the Navy at the 6, 7 year mark. And they were going to grad school. And they were getting into places like Stanford, Columbia, Harvard, Wharton. And I was like, wow, how are they able to get into these like elite institutions? Right? Yeah. Well, some of them were going to law school, some were going to business school, like a whole host of different graduate school programs. And I didn't know what I wanted to do because all I wanted to do was military. And that's why I went to a military college. That's why I went to the Marine Corps, and I had tunnel vision. I never expected if I were to get out, like what I would do. So I said, at least business school and grad school gives me a few years to experiment, figure things out. And I was in the hospital bed studying for the tests, the GMAT, the GRE. And the one thing that I tell veterans is like, don't self-select. So like, I never envisioned myself going to Harvard, going to Wharton. Like that was never part of the plan, but I want them to tell me no. I don't want myself to tell myself no. So I said, okay, I'm going to apply to Harvard. I'm going to apply to Wharton. I'm going to apply to Stanford. I'm going to apply to Northwestern, like all these different schools, and see what happens. So I essentially had a burn the boats mentality with grad school. It's like, I'm getting into grad school. It's just a matter of which one.
Mm-hmm.
And was fortunate to get into Wharton, to get into Harvard. And it's a 3-year program to where I spent my first year at Wharton, second year split. I spent the fall at Harvard, spring at Wharton, graduate with my Wharton classmates. And then my third and final year is all at Harvard.
Mm.
So then I get to graduate with my Harvard classmates as well. And I end up with an MBA from Wharton and then a master's in public administration from Harvard.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Great experience. Got to travel the world, got to live in Singapore for a little bit.
Wow. And and at some point, so is it after this, then you start getting involved in things like the Invictus Games?
So it was right when I knew I was going to be retired from the Marine Corps. I was in physical therapy. So this was probably 2019. And my physical therapist saw that I was looking down, depressed, just not like myself. And she's like, "Hey, what's going on?" I said, "I'm on this medical board. I don't have anything that I'm training for. Like, I don't know if I'm going to get into grad school. I don't have a strong mission that I'm looking forward to because everything's uncertain right now in my life." And she said, "Well, this weekend I'm going up to Toronto to watch some former patients compete in the Invictus Games." And I said, "What's the Invictus Games?" And she explained what they were. For those that don't know, everybody's heard of the Olympics. Maybe you've heard of the Paralympics. Think of the Invictus Games as the Paralympics, but it's only for wounded service members. So started by Prince Harry. It's every 2 years in a different country. It's been in the US, it's been in Canada, it's been in Australia, it's been all over. It's been in Germany. And I remember thinking, I said, I need to be at a certain level athletically, physically, because I'm still in physical therapy. I just barely had learned how to walk. And the people that compete in the Invictus Games are competing at a very high level.
Oh, yeah.
So I said, "Do you think it's realistic?" And she's like, "Yes, but it's going to take time. You're not going to make the next one. Maybe you'll make the one after that." I said, "Okay." It gave me something to train for.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to get selected, there's this whole process, but the Marine Corps has something called the Marine Corps Trials. So all the wounded service members from the Marine Corps compete. If you do well enough there, you get selected to compete in what's called the Warrior Games. The Warrior Games are hosted by the Department of Defense. The Army has a team, Navy, Air Force. They all bring their top wounded service members, both active and retired. And then if you do well enough there, then you can get selected for the Invictus Games.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you ended up competing in what year?
I competed in 2023 in Germany.
Oh, wow.
And yeah. So, I had that conversation in 2019. So it was a goal for 4 years. But during that time, I was in grad school. So while I was studying, while I was traveling, I was still training for the Invictus Games.
So this is one of the reasons I want to bring you on, because there is something where somebody has a very specific goal, right? They have their habits that are built around that, and that allows them success in that.
Totally.
But life doesn't always play by the rules. Things happen. Life happens. This happens to you, and it's a mindset and a set of habits that transcend just your time in the military.
Mm-hmm.
It's allowed you, I would think, to achieve, to do the things that you've done since then. As far as in nature nurture, how much of that do you think was just the way you're wired? How much of that was through mentors, through watching other people? What's your thought on where that came from?
I think it's a combination, but it can be trained, definitely. And I always put myself in environments. So maybe this is how I'm wired, but to where I'd be challenged, where I would fail, where I would learn, where I would grow. So from a young age, that was sports. And then sports that migrated into the military. The military, once that was gone, you have to kind of force that yourself. So I was able to continue on sports as an adult as a way to continue to refine that, but also academically, not only doing hard physical challenges, but mental challenges as well. And going to places like Harvard and Wharton, especially for somebody that didn't envision themselves there, I had to study twice as hard. So for me, I think it was a combination of both, but always just continuing to know that that's something that I need to pursue. And it's not something that I can just take a back seat and expect it's going to carry me through life.
Yeah. Because I had the same conversation with Mike Stedman
Mm,
a couple weeks ago,
yeah.
and there's there's a lot of people, it's myself included, for a good part of my life, where you don't put yourself in certain situations or positions because your ceiling is just too low. You really think, hey, well, that's not for me.
Yeah.
But there's the more you end up in those positions, you realize, well, they're all like everyone's the same, right? It's just the people that actually put themselves out there. And I guess that was the question: is uh, it sounds like that was someone that was kind of hardwired in you from the time as a kid, like your willingness just to put yourself in there, knowing that failure could be an option. Because at the time, I imagine even going to grad school, if that doesn't work out and you're in some of the hardest programs, then it's another now what? And that's got to be an awfully scary proposition at that point in your life.
Yeah.
Uh, so where does that leave you now? Before we hit record here, you mentioned some things that you're excited about, and then I kind of want to get into your thoughts on habits and kind of how you track yours, how you set goals, because I think
Sure.
there's obviously got to be a lot there.
Yeah. So I've been consulting in New York City the past 2 years for a firm called Boston Consulting Group, or BCG for short. It was one of the two paths that most veterans from these graduate school programs pursue. It's either consulting or investment banking. And for me, the reason why I chose consulting, like I always love to understand people's why behind why they make certain choices. For me, it was because I wanted to have some work in the private sector
Mm-hmm.
at a big firm, just so I can understand how business in the real world works, operates. And the beauty of consulting is you get to be on a bunch of different
Sure.
projects. So my first year, I was in our private equity practice. So a private equity firm would come to us and they say, "Hey, we're looking to make an investment in this company. Can you let us know if this is a good strategic buy?" So essentially what we would do is we would look at four primary things, like the market, the competitive landscape, customer analysis, and then growth levers, because private equity firms want to make a return on their investment.
Sure.
So I was doing that for the first year. It was great. Learned a lot. It's also unsustainable working till like 2 or 3 a.m. most nights.
Yeah.
But I knew that going in. So I was fine with that. And then my second year, I wanted to explore more aspects of the firm. So I joined our federal practice.
Okay.
So we do a lot of work with the US military, US government, and being a veteran, that was a natural fit and really enjoyed that. And at the end of the 2 years, I had always told myself, I'm going to make a decision. Hey, is this something that you're going to stick with, or are you going to do something else? And there were just a lot of things coming up in my life that I could no longer say no to. And I have a limited time window to do so. So one of those things is I'm in the process of writing a book. So the goal at the end of this year is to get it picked up by a major publisher and published next year. Another thing is I have an opportunity to pursue a Paralympic pathway.
It's awesome.
So I got reached out to by the Paralympic Training Committee a few months ago. They invited me down to Chula Vista, which is one of their training centers. It's just outside of San Diego.
Okay.
And it was a week-long training and assessment. So they trained us on speed, strength, agility. They got our height, they got our weight, they got our measurements. And from there, they're taking all the data and based on our classification. So it makes the Paralympics and just adaptive sports in general different from everything else is you only compete against people with similar type injuries.
Yeah, even with Invictus, that was one thing I was wondering, like, what is that selection process, like that threshold for somebody to compete
Yeah.
in that? And then the second part of that is you go down there for an assessment. Do they then pick the sport because of after doing this assessment, they're like, hey, we think you would be.
Yes.
Okay.
So after the assessment and you get your classification, because classification is the biggest unknown and not every sport you get access to based on your classification. So I went down there for a track and field assessment. So I'm an F42, meaning the only track events that I'm eligible for are the 100-meter dash. The only field events that I'm eligible for are the shot put and the javelin. So based on my injury, I can't do the 200, the 1500, anything like that.
Anything long distance?
Yeah.
Why?
Just due to the nature of the injury.
Hmm.
Yeah. And the amount of people in the world that compete in that sort of distance and stuff like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's got to be a strange process to like figure out. Like,
Totally.
God, like
Yeah.
this part works so he can.
But I had to rule out the 100-meter because I'm in a classification where I would compete with above knee amputees, and above knee amputees have that, I'm sure you've seen it, like the cheetah blade.
Yeah.
So with my injury, I still have my limb. It's just not functional, and I don't have
it's not
as
fair.
high speed of prosthetics as those.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So so you were told about that. Now what's the next step in that process?
Yeah, the next step. So I've got assigned a coach and everything. I have a plan, and in 2026, I have to do a couple official meets just to get my scores on record, and then they make the selection process in 2027 for Team USA.
Where's the games going to be?
It's in LA, so
perfect.
Los Angeles. Yeah. And the beauty of it being in the U.S. is the U.S. is allowed to bring more athletes, to where if it was in another country, they get a limited number of slots. But since it's in the U.S.,
as many as you want.
I don't know if as many as you want, but it's definitely a good time to
if you're gonna
try to make
yeah,
the team.
Yeah, that's amazing. What a cool experience that would be.
Yeah.
So I actually have a friend of mine that was on the board for that.
Awesome.
Yeah, the Olympic Committee.
Brad Snyder, by chance?
No. Stephen Wisnett. Steve, if you're listening. But yeah, I'm stoked for you. I think that'd be really cool.
Thank you. So more to come with that.
Okay.
So books of primary, the Paralympic pathway. I'm also speaking more. I'm leveraging more speaking. And then...
Yeah, we're going to get you on. We're going to have, at some point here in 2026, I would love, if it fits in your schedule, have you come and speak at one of the events. I actually have somebody else I think would be a perfect fit for you two to speak together. So... and
then the last thing, I'll be launching a foundation this year, and we'll be doing an announcement in the next couple months.
Okay. Can you speak more about that, or we're going to keep that? Just keep it. Never mind.
No. Yeah. Just be on the lookout for something in the next couple months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you started? You've started that process?
Yeah. I've already submitted the paperwork.
Oh, good.
Yeah. It's going to be a 501c3. Yeah.
Nice. That's exciting, man. So really what I want to finish up on then is there's people that would go through the exact same thing and their life would look different.
Totally.
What are your thoughts? So, I mean, if you were to pontificate on what the difference is, when somebody has to go through adversity like that, what are the small things that help decide whether, their life moves on in a positive direction, or this is something that defines them as moving forward?
So there's a couple things, and in no particular order. So the first thing that stands out to me was, after my injury, a lot of people, they genuinely meant this, but they kept on saying, "Oh my gosh, this is so terrible. This is like the worst thing that could ever happen to you." And for the longest time, I kind of believed them, because if you, depending on the narrative, right? Like I just talked about how I wanted to make the Marine Corps a career, and like this injury derailed that. So you can make an argument it is the worst thing that ever happened to me. But then when I was in therapy at Walter Reed, my therapist was like, "Have you heard of this term called cognitive reappraisal?" I said, "No, what is that?" She's like, "It's when you reframe things. So instead of it being the worst thing that ever happened to you, like what if this is the best thing that ever happened to you?" And yes, it's cliche, but not only saying that, but actually believing it. So I started to believe it. I said, "Hey, what if this is the worst thing that ever happened to me?" Because now I don't know what the future holds. Like when I was in the military, I knew pretty much what the future was going to hold. I knew it was going to be 20 years in the Marines. Granted, what that service looked like was going to be unknown, but now out of the military, I have no idea what that can look like. And the evidence that I've been able to prove to myself of, graduate school at Harvard and Wharton, the Invictus Games, moving to New York City, all this sort of stuff doesn't happen if I don't get shot.
Yeah. Yeah. You've probably heard of it. And I don't even know exactly where it comes from, but that like kind of wise saying of, we'll see.
Yeah.
It goes something along the line like, guy finds a horse and
Oh, yes. Yes.
they're
Yes.
like, you're so lucky. He says, we'll see. And then
Yeah.
his son breaks his leg on the horse and he says, man, what a tragedy. He goes, well, we'll see. And then a war happens and he doesn't go to war because his leg broke.
Yeah.
And so
Totally.
yeah. And sometimes that's, those friction points are such awesome learning lessons.
Yeah. Well, and then I really got involved in Stoic philosophy during my recovery. And for those that don't know anything about Stoic philosophy, you can essentially boil it down to this one sentence. You don't control what happens to you in life. You control how you respond. So
it's a serenity prayer at the end of the day.
Yeah. So the thing is that most people forget is you can always choose how to respond. Like life is going to throw you many curveballs, but the choice is yours to determine how you react. And then what is that narrative that you're going to tell yourself about that experience? So I talked about it from an injury perspective, but that might not be as relatable because not everybody's going to be getting shot, but everybody's going to lose a loved one. So I had a friend recently lost his father. My buddy was kind of in a holding pattern in life, wasn't really pushing himself, wasn't doing anything different. And then the death of his father happens. And he chooses to use that as a time to make a change for the positive. He ends up moving to a new city, getting a better job. Now he has a girlfriend. He's working out. Like all this stuff happened because he chose his response from, his father dying when he was at a young age. Like he's the same age as me. And he chose to use that as a positive and not as a negative.
Yeah. It's, one of my very good friends, a guy named Mike Brown, he's been a guest on the podcast and, former Air Marshal, Secret Service agent, postal agent, and he's got ALS. And, as you know, that's not something you come back from. But to watch this guy not be a victim and just say, hey, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to really pitch this narrative of 0 days to waste, it was called. And it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, because I think most people would dwell in that, and not just him having ALS, but whatever those things that seem insurmountable that life throws at you. There's something really beautiful about watching people go through that and change the narrative on it, or finding a way to make that a positive. And so I'm always inspired by it. I'm impressed by you. I'm impressed by your story and what you've done. I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm excited to hear more about the foundation. And man,
well, part of the foundation is going to center around grit and growth. And after a lot of self-reflection, after my injury, I said, how was I able to recover so well? And for me, when I was connecting the dots, it was because I had chosen to do gritty things throughout my entire life that had built up that resilience in me. And then I was fortunate enough when I was at Wharton, I studied under Angela Duckworth, who wrote an entire book on grit. And for those that are listening that don't know, but the definition that she defines grit as, it's passion and perseverance for long-term growth. And she found that as the number one predictor for long-term success. And I found that true in my own life. And that's why one of the goals that I want to continue to try to do is spread that message of how powerful it is to not only be aware of the power of grit, but also to make it part of your daily, your weekly, your yearly life, because it's not something that you learn in school.
No,
but it's something that everybody's going to have to deal with.
Yeah. How do you put that into motion in your life now?
For me, every year on my live day, so the day that I got shot, I try to do something that's hard, both physically and mentally, as a way to train my grit.
You recatheter yourself? Just kidding. I'm joking.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
So that's a way that at least I know once a year annually, I will get that rep in.
Yeah.
And it's not only the day, because it's the 4 to 6 months that lead up to that day, because I have to train and prepare for that day. So this past year, it was 1,000 pull-ups, 1,000 push-ups. I can't just wake up tomorrow and do that.
Oh,
I have
God,
to,
no, that sounds horrible.
and I wanted to make something that was both, it's obviously physically challenging, but it's also mentally challenging as well. And it's just a rep that I know I can include in my life moving forward.
Yeah.
And I heard it put by Jesse Itzler, who's a serial entrepreneur, very well known in the space, and he calls it his Misogi.
Yeah.
So essentially, Misogi is a year defining moment. Like, you try to do one Misogi a year. So unbeknownst to me, I was doing that through my Alive Day.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's actually how it came up when I was talking to Mike Stedman, and he mentioned going to your Alive Day ceremony.
Yeah. That's where we met first.
Yeah. And I mentioned, I'm like, it's crazy because he's coming on the podcast. It's a small world. So,
Yeah.
How do you set your goals now? Do you do quarterly? Do you do it annually?
I do it annually with my girlfriend now. So we actually just did it 2 weeks ago for 2026, and we broke it down into 4 different quadrants. It was personal, financial, professional, and health.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then how do you track that?
We track that just on a simple, if you know the platform Notion.
Yeah.
So we have a shared Notion, and not only do we have that, but one of my buddies, Ryan Cass, I listened to one of his talks once, and he brings up some interesting data that, if you have a goal, if you write it down, you're 42% likely to accomplish it.
Yep.
If you tell somebody about it or make it public, you're like over 70% likely to make it happen.
Yeah. It's a line in the sand for sure.
Yeah. So I start off, I write it down in the Notion, and then I have these little sticky notes in different areas of my apartment where I know that I'm going to frequent. So the desk where I do like a lot of my writing, a lot of my reading, the kitchen table, like anywhere to where, and even on the fridge, just so I'm constantly looking at it. And in case I ever have some downtime, I'm like, okay, like, how can I do something that pushes me closer to writing this book, or making the Paralympic team, or
what's the next right thing?
The foundation. Yeah. Like, if I have any idle time, then I know, okay, I haven't worked on this goal in a while. So what small things can I do? Because I love the simple quote of small hinges swing big doors.
Yeah. We use it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what little thing can I do that can just continue to add every single day?
Yeah, it's that compound interest, right? Like there's just these. It doesn't have to be this monumental thing. It's. We use the words consistency over intensity, but just keeping it moving in the right direction. And
yeah,
it's amazing how far you go just by doing that. So,
and I think what's been helpful of having these big goals is I read an article recently on Keystone habits.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with Keystone habits? Yeah. So unbeknownst to me, I was doing a lot of these Keystone habits. So for those listening that don't know, Keystone habits are essentially habits that have positive second and third order effects. So an example of a Keystone habit would be working out consistently, right? The second and third order effects, you're more likely to eat well. You're more likely to get better quality sleep. So a lot of positive second order effects just from one simple habit.
Yeah. We have a habits course right now. So we've run a beta group. We've had 3 iterations, but one of the things is defining your Keystone habits, and then journaling about them, and then writing them, putting them out to the world, and then it's an interactive thing. So we're talking the same language.
Awesome.
Yeah. You've been really active on Substack, and I've loved your articles. If somebody wants to find out more about what you're doing, read what you're doing on Substack, is it just by your name? How can they find you?
Sure. There's a couple. First way, primarily probably LinkedIn. That would be the best, because if I do a Substack post, I will always write a condensed version on LinkedIn.
Ah, cool.
So then you can always find the shortened version on LinkedIn. And then if you want to read more, you can click on it. It's typically in the comments, and then it'll go to my Substack.
Okay.
And then I am active on Instagram, but really not as much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably for the best.
Yeah.
It's toxic.
Yeah. Well, the advice I had gotten from somebody was, pick one social media platform and kind of like make that your priority. And
Yeah.
for me, it's been LinkedIn based on, my writing, speaking, and everything else.
Yeah. I think the ROI on that is much better than you're going to get on Instagram. But
Yeah.
Patrick, is there anything we didn't cover that you'd like to hit?
No, those are the big things that I wanted to make sure that we covered. I really appreciate you having me on and for the time. And yeah, it is the new year. So if you're looking for some habits, I would prioritize the Keystone habits first, and then everything else is secondary.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for coming down here. I appreciate you making the trip, and I'm excited to see what happens here in the future.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, that's a wrap. Huge thanks to Patrick for coming on here, telling his story. If you guys want to support what we're doing here, you want to be part of these events, you want to just maybe help other people go through these events, make sure you leave us a donation there at consequenceofhabit.org and hit the donate button. Other than that, you guys have a great month, and we will see you soon.